It's closing in on the second full week of this crisis within the Liberal Party, and while the party tries to recover, what is happening to its role as Quebec's official opposition? Tom Mulcair joins us. Hi, Tom.
Great to be with you, Mitsumi.
So, Tom, before we get to all that, former Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault resigned from cabinet because of the pipeline. He'd always been against the pipeline. I thought of you, Tom, because you know what it's like. He was in a very tough situation.
Yeah, and it is very tough to resign from cabinet. And I think a few people might be surprised to learn that it's absolutely fine for him to stay on as an MP. You get elected as an MP. You don't get elected as a member of cabinet. So I send him my best wishes for having done that. I left cabinet of Mr. Charest's government on a point of principle about Mount Orford Park and the intention to give land in a provincial park to private developers to build condos, and I refused to sign the papers, and I left. But I stayed on as an MNA the same way Guilbeault's staying on. He's a strong character. I know that he's going to rebound. He's probably going to feel a little bit lighter in his step as he goes through the rest of his time in Parliament, and I'm sure he's going to go on to bigger and better things in his career. And I, again, wish him and his family all the best.
Okay, so now I want to get to Bill 9, the expansion of Bill 21, banning religious symbols, public prayer. The Quebec Liberals have traditionally defended minority rights, but they're not coming out very strong on this.
Right there in the name. Why is it called the Liberal Party? Because they're all about liberties, and they're a liberal rights party. But under Pablo Rodriguez, they're anything but. Mr. Rodriguez came up with this astonishing statement. Bill 21, which openly discriminates, Mitsumi, against religious minorities generally and against Muslim women in particular. What did Mr. Rodriguez have to say? He said it had helped bring social peace in Quebec. At the time, I wrote that he had just painted himself into a corner, and it's turning out to be true. Because the CAQ has decided to come at religious minorities even harder today with this new law that you just made reference to. And where is Rodriguez on this? He's nowhere. And this is the problem. When you don't understand the history of these things, when you don't understand what the overarching importance of defending rights is, then you paint yourself in a corner and you can't come out. I've been watching carefully as the party just goes into an absolute tailspin. There's going to be an investigation here and an investigation there, whether it's UPAC or the Ethics Commission or their own thing that they've started. I'm watching also the body language of the people who stand beside Mr. Rodriguez, and I have to say that I'm totally gobsmacked at the lack of strong support for him. He came out of Ottawa. He brought in his whole staff from Ottawa. He thought he was going to take over the Liberal Party, which has been around a lot longer than he has, and people are just so unimpressed with what they're seeing. I think that it's very likely that he won't be around at the time of the next election. The Liberals will have to come up with another choice, because what we've been seeing this week is a lack of maturity, a lack of sensitivity, and a lack of ability to assume obligations. In other words, a lack of leadership. And you can't be the leader of party if you don't have any leadership, and that's unfortunately for him the case with Pablo Rodriguez.
And, you know, there was a poll released today that I'm sure a lot of the Liberals are finding very disturbing. It finds that Quebecers, their first impression of Pablo Rodriguez isn't very good, and that doesn't bode well for a party that's going into an election year.
Exactly. He's much lower than his party. The Liberals have been floating in the 25 to 30% range. You know, they could do fairly well if they just stuck to a game plan that made sense. But the poll also shows that Mr. Rodriguez himself is not popular. He's at 13%, not 30. So it's a huge problem for the Liberals. I think they're going to start to wake up to the fact that they made a huge mistake. That's my impression. And, you know, there's going to be tons of stuff going on. There are lawsuits here and threats to sue there. All this keeps going on. And instead of talking about fixing our education system, fixing our health system, the Liberals only seem to have, and Mr. Rodriguez only seems to have energy to do one thing, to defend himself. I don't think that Quebecers are impressed. And I think that the reason that they're not impressed is because they haven't been showing their ability to demonstrate that they can be a government in waiting to replace the CAQ. The CAQ is on the ropes. They're at the low point in the polls. Nothing's going well for them. The PQ is promising a referendum that the vast majority of Quebecers don't want. And instead of taking advantage of that, the Liberals are fighting amongst themselves. It's a sad show, but honestly, Rodriguez has only himself to blame.
You know, Tom, I'm curious. You've been the leader of the opposition. You've been the leader of a party. You know what it's like to deal with crises. What should Pablo Rodriguez be doing in a situation like this? Is there anything he
should
can
have had
do?
a clear plan, and he shouldn't have exaggerated. I mean, the reaction of claiming to be able to dump, he says she was suspended, to dump his parliamentary leader, who was by far the strongest player in his caucus, because he didn't like the fact that she, who was the only boss of her chief of staff, Marwa Risky was the only boss of her chief of staff. Don't forget, Mr. Rodriguez hasn't been elected anywhere. He can't spend any National Assembly money. It's not his employee. And she, we'll go through all the details. It has to do with whether or not government money was being spent properly, whether it was being used for party purposes. All that's yet to be determined. But there's more than enough out there to be very concerned and to understand that Marwa Risky herself, with a sterling reputation for being an upright person, she was very concerned with what was happening. And I think that that's the bottom line here, is that the Liberals, instead of taking care of the public and taking care of the big issues and defending people's rights, seem to have only got energy, and Mr. Rodriguez only has the ability to fight when it's to fight for himself. It's too bad he doesn't show the same energy to fight for people's rights, but that's what I take away from this personally.
Okay. Thank you very much for this, Tom.
Great to be with you, Mitsumi.